All right, everyone. I believe this is week 6, and we are going over the second part of the Columbo tactic, found in chapter 4. And let's go ahead and begin. So the burden of proof. So you don't have to feel like you have to explain your position when you haven't stated it. So if you're just asking questions and you haven't actually stated your position, you're not making a claim, then have to feel you shouldn't feel the need to explain it. Many people will make a claim, state that something is the case, but not provide reasons for it, thinking they're exempt. So the rule of thumb is whoever makes the claim bears the burden to prove it. It's not your job to prove them wrong, it's their job to prove themselves right, or to show that their position is the most reasonable or probable. So building a house, Greg Kokel in his book talks about arguments are kind of like houses. So the foundation would be your claim or the assertion. The walls are the reasons, and the roof is the conclusion. So if people state their claim and then jump to their conclusion without actually giving reasons, then Kokel says it's synonymous with the roof being built on the ground, no walls. It's a wall-less house. So that would be not very practical, because no one would be able to live in that house. Same thing if with an argument, if you make a claim or an assertion and then you just go to your conclusion without providing or giving reasons for your position, then you're essentially building a space that's not livable, and it's not a reasonable way to live. So an assertion is not a reason, nor is it an argument. So don't let someone flatten you by dropping a roof, their conclusion, on your head. Make him build walls. Those are the reasons underneath his roof. Ask him for a reason or a fact to support his conclusions. And then we will come back to reasons and positions later. So the second step is, how did you come to that conclusion? I'm having troubles here. So how did you come to that conclusion? So the first step is to gather information to know what the other person believes. This step is to know the why they believe it. If they cannot answer or give reasons, then their position is akin to believing in magic. So intelligent belief is always based on reasons. So really what you're doing is you're shifting the burden of proof on the person making the claim. So we do not need to defend something we have not stated. So you also remember, an alternate explanation is not a refutation. So if somebody gives another explanation for something that's different than yours, that doesn't refute your position. That's just another explanation or position that needs to be shown that it's better than your explanation or reason, because that's kind of what we go on for much of what we know or what we see, is how probable is it that this happened, or how likely is it that this happened. We do it pretty much every day. So just because they can explain something that is different than your position doesn't mean that makes your position null and void. They have not refuted your position. So an explanation. So upon hearing an explanation, remember to ask these 3 questions. So if somebody gives an explanation, you want to ask first, is it possible? Is what they state even possible? Does it make sense? Is it plausible? Some things are possible but not plausible. So, for example, does it make sense that what they say could actually happen? Is it reasonable to believe? And then, is it probable? So, does what they claim or explain have a higher probability of being true than other positions? So all sorts of things are possible, but not all things are equally likely or equally feasible. And then I pulled a quote. Reversing the burden of proof is not a trick to avoid defending our own ideas. When we give opinions, we have to answer for them just like anyone else. We have a responsibility, but so do they, and that's the point. We can't let them duck responsibility. If they make a claim, they should defend it. And then when they state their claim or their explanation for something, we want to make sure that we ask, is it possible, plausible, or probable? The professor's ploy, you probably can recall the example. in the book. It doesn't always have to be a college professor. It can be anybody who has the advantage when talking. If they have the advantage because they're on home turf, they're around all of their friends and everybody that agrees with them, or whatever the case. But simply put, they attempt to get you to explain why their position is wrong. So if you don't make the claim, there's nothing to defend. Key, if this is attempted, you must point out that you did not make a claim, so there's nothing for you to defend, and then you try to shift it back to them. Since they're the ones that are making the claim, they need to show support for that. All right, sometimes we will be outmatched, and that is okay. If you don't know how to respond to new information, then you just say it. If there's new information you've never heard, for example. So don't make up answers. That's very important. You can always ask questions, get more information, tell them what you think about, tell them that you will think about it, and then come back. This does two things when you tell them that you'll think about it and then come back and get back to them. It takes the pressure off of you, and it shows that you are really concerned about actually getting it right, not just holding on to your own view, but you'll actually consider what they're saying. And then saying you don't know, but you'll find out, is a respectful and intellectually honest thing to do. So you're just saying, not everybody can know everything. It's unrealistic to expect somebody to know everything. So when you say that, you're saying, hey, I don't know everything. I don't know this specifically. So I'm going to go ahead and go look it up. Always remember, that's the humble thing to do. It's hard to do, but it shows that you have some humility, and that you're willing to look at the other side, or evidence that the other side is providing. So it's definitely a good thing to admit. So conclusion, step 1, looking back at the Columbo Step 1, what do you mean by that? So know what they believe. Step 2 is, how did you come to that conclusion? So you're trying to figure out the why they believe. And then next week, we're going to go over the third step. So remember, whoever makes the claim must defend it. It's not our job to refute what they're saying, at least not right off the bat, but it's their job to provide reasons and evidence for the position that they hold. And remember to always ask, is it possible? Is it plausible? And is it probable? And don't be afraid to acknowledge your lack of knowledge, but follow up if possible. After you've, put some thought on the evidence that they provided. It's okay to not know, and it's definitely okay to let them know that you don't know. But it's very important to say you'll consider it, you'll think about it, and then you'll come back with your thoughts about it. And if you have counter evidence, or you have a counter argument for what they were talking about, that's perfectly fine. But it definitely shows that you have some interest in what they think, and that you're not just holding on to something that you hold dear. You're willing to learn some truth, even if it runs counter to what you believe. If there's any questions about this, go ahead. You know how to get a hold of me, and thanks for listening.